The construction of our new home started. My husband unfortunately lost his job. He had agreed to contribute half of the mortgage, even considering taking on part-time work, but ultimately did not follow through with finding employment. Upon the completion of our new house, my husband proposed something quite daring. I've chosen to gift this house to my lovely niece as a wedding present. If you disagree with my idea, we can simply purchase another house. We should end our marriage right away. Surprised by his secret, I quickly agreed to divorce if that's what he wanted. John grinned, believing he had succeeded. After swiftly filing for divorce, he inquired about the division of property, which caused a noticeable shift in his attitude once I revealed that I knew his secret. With the help of another person, his original plan veered off course, resulting in a remarkable turn of events. We had been married for 3 years. Next year, I will be celebrating my 30th birthday, and my husband, who is in his mid-30s, talked about the possibility of having children. Given the physical demands of childbirth and the unpredictability of our current health, I decided to have children before reaching my mid-30s and discussed it with my husband. He recommended taking time before starting a family. If it felt overwhelming, he mentioned wanting children, but recognized that our current home was too small for a family, suggesting we think about purchasing a house. Raising children involves significant financial commitments, and purchasing a home may entail almost 3 decades of mortgage payments. By that time, my husband will probably be in his mid-60s and retired. I wanted to avoid placing any financial strain on our children. My mother balanced a full-time job with raising me, taking care of the house, and supporting my father until she retired. I always looked up to her and chose to balance work with taking care of the home. With determination, we meticulously planned for our home, selecting a builder and initiating our new home project. Luckily, we had some savings, so we opted to increase our down payment to prevent any potential mortgage difficulties down the road. Right when everything seemed to be falling into place, my husband's company went bankrupt, leaving him without a job or any severance pay. I asked him if there were any signs of the company's impending failure, but he snapped back, saying he couldn't have known since he wasn't an executive. One morning, he found himself unable to enter his workplace due to a notice announcing the company's bankruptcy the day before. It was a small company, and it appeared that the president and other responsible parties had disappeared overnight, without even leaving that month's salary. Considering the uncertain future, I proposed that we think about buying the house, but my husband was adamant about moving forward since we had already made significant progress. Because of his strong motivation to secure a new job quickly, I decided to pause the plan. He was hopeful about swiftly securing a new job. We chose to proceed with our plan after he landed a new job. He began frequenting the job center and eagerly looking for jobs online. My spouse also secured some temporary employment while searching for a permanent job, but it was on a call basis and unpredictable. His willingness to share the mortgage payments and dedication to doing so eased my mind, especially since my income was steady and we could handle things without his help for now. I've made the decision to proceed with our home project. So far, my husband may appear dedicated and responsible, but he has a peculiar obsession with his niece, the daughter of his much older sister. She became a mother at a young age, and my husband, who became an uncle early on, showered his niece with love and attention. Even though they lived far apart, during occasional visits, he would generously send expensive gifts and give her money that exceeded expectations. On one occasion, he even surprised her with a Christmas present of $1,000, which I thought was too much. When unexpected expenses arose, he chose to prioritize gifts for his niece over our budget, causing me to question his priorities. His kindness toward his niece often left me dismayed. Currently without a job, he didn't use our savings for his niece, but spent extended periods outside, supposedly looking for work, coming back home later than when he had a job. Although his enthusiasm to secure a job was admirable, he started to neglect our home project, leaving all decisions to me. He requested that I take care of all the paperwork, with the intention of having only his name on the joint ownership. I kindly prompted him to take an interest in our home, and he reacted with frustration, mentioning his exhaustion from searching for a job. I was concerned that he might later claim that because I made all the decisions, I should be accountable for the mortgage payments. When discussing payment arrangements, he preferred to maintain his personal savings until securing a job, focusing on future emergencies rather than immediate needs. He strongly suggested that I take over the mortgage payments for now, which seemed much more convenient for him than our original agreement. I asked him to sign a loan agreement for the duration I would be covering the mortgage, wanting to establish my position. He kept expressing his concerns, but eventually agreed when he understood that pushing him about his job search could cause problems. John has promised to reimburse me for half of the mortgage payments I covered while he was unemployed once he finds a new job. I managed to obtain his signature on the agreement and kept it safe in a place where he wouldn't stumble upon it. However, there were several occasions when the commitments we first made unraveled before our new home was finished. First, John, who had mentioned he would secure a job swiftly and wouldn't be selective, struggled to find employment as the completion of our new home neared. In addition, he turned down multiple offers from the temp agency he signed up with, providing different reasons. Hated the idea of supporting a husband who made no effort, so I pressed him to find a job many times, but he always dodged the issue, leading to more arguments. During this time, our new home was finished and prepared for us to move in. However, given the circumstances, the idea of moving in with John appeared challenging. Actually, I had collected different pieces of information since he lost his job, such as his ongoing struggle to secure employment. I have several things I'd like to confirm and discuss. When John was heading to the job center, I went up to him as usual. "Would you like to spend today with me?" I mentioned to him that there was something important I wanted to discuss. John attempted to steer the conversation away, emphasizing that securing a job was his main focus. He suggested discussing it later, pointing out that skipping a day at the job center wouldn't make a difference, especially since it was uncertain if he had any interviews lined up. I stood my ground, insisting that he pay attention to me. John made a bold statement. "A nagging woman isn't cute. You know what? Hey, I have something to share with you as well." I thought I could be patient, but since it's positive news, now is the perfect moment. My niece is getting married, and I've chosen to gift her the new home. We can divide the mortgage and continue making payments jointly. I was surprised by his generous gestures towards his niece in the past, but giving her a whole house, why did he decide on something so important without talking to me beforehand? This was the first time I heard about his niece's upcoming wedding. I haven't consented to this. Is this a decision you can make independently? Inquired further. After that, John threatened divorce if I disagreed. He mentioned the idea of constructing a new home, but there has been no progress so far. He was unable to find a job. However, he continued to make vague commitments about securing employment. Although his words seemed believable, his behavior did not align. I chuckled in amazement at his words, as I had already expected his outlandish idea of giving a whole house to his niece. That matter must be related, right? I was curious to see his reaction, so I asked him a lot of questions. "Are you kidding? Currently, I am not employed. You're generously giving your niece a house that still has a mortgage on it. Do you think she'd be pleased with that? How could someone think of giving away a house that we're still paying a 30-year mortgage on? Furthermore, presenting a house with an outstanding mortgage as a gift for a celebration appears to be transferring a significant financial responsibility, which is quite shocking. I'd also inquired about what this meant for our plans to start a family, considering we bought the house for when our family expands. John confidently replied to my questions, stating he wouldn't be affected by a divorce. He'd avoided answering my questions and only mentioned the possibility of divorce without providing any explanation. It felt like we were from different worlds, making conversation nearly impossible. There were several topics I had planned to talk about, but it turned out that John was more difficult than I had expected. I was considering discussing divorce, so I quickly agreed to his suggestion.
If you agree to my terms, including leaving the house and finalizing our divorce, I will listen to anything, John said. You can go ahead and file the divorce papers first. But I prefer to settle the division of property after the divorce is officially finalized. I also want to get ready for living on my own, so let's sort everything out once you calm down, I told him. John was amenable, stating he would adhere to my requests as long as he could initiate divorce proceedings right away. Actually, my intention to get ready for living alone was just an excuse. I have one more thing to take care of. I informed John that I required some time to get ready for living by myself as a tactic to delay without him catching on. After some time, I finished all my pending tasks and was just waiting for the perfect time to reach out to John. Then, maybe feeling a bit antsy or stumbling upon something, he reached out to me initially. How can I help you today? Why is our new home being listed for sale? That was meant to be a present for my niece, and it's something we both own anyway. He was upset over the phone, accusing me of selling our jointly owned home without his knowledge and refusing to listen to anything I had to say. After allowing him to express his feelings, I replied, I was aware that you were attempting to shift all the payments onto me. Did you actually believe it was still jointly owned? You seemed very eager to get a divorce. I assumed you would have double-checked that detail. When you requested joint ownership, it was arranged accordingly. But I decided to change the ownership because I was concerned that he would avoid payments and try to claim the house as his own. After the house was completed, he began acting strangely, believing he could keep his true intentions hidden. He adamantly claimed the house was for his niece, convinced that no one suspected him. I managed to pay off the entire mortgage using my savings. Little did John know, my parents had sold the land inherited from my grandfather to provide cash for a payment. My parents always preferred purchasing things outright instead of taking out loans, which they considered to be uncertain and risky. They helped me out financially so I could purchase the house outright. I had thought about taking their advice, but then John lost his job. Worried that his behavior might worsen if he found out about the money, I chose to stay quiet. Furthermore, I questioned whether he would reimburse me if I paid for everything. I refrained from informing him to avoid overshadowing my parents' kindness. John was very upset when he found out about the ownership change and blamed me for not keeping our promise about the house. Is the house still standing? Is it still intact and suitable for living? Don't worry about it if it ends up in someone else's hands. If you truly desire it, you have the option to repurchase it. I believe I had the freedom to make decisions about the house I owned outright, but residing in a home designed by an ex-spouse didn't sit well with me. John, feeling upset by my statement, asserted his entitlement to a portion of the proceeds as marital property. He requested a prompt share, ensuring to verify the exact amount later. I asked him to meet up, mentioning that I had more information to share. Arriving early at the agreed-upon location, I waited for him. When John arrived and started talking, I revealed something that caused him to stop speaking abruptly, the findings of a private investigator's investigation into his behavior. The report contained evidence of his extramarital relationship, featuring prominent photos of him kissing another woman in public, dining out at upscale restaurants, and entering hotels. It was mentioned that even though John had initially searched for a job after losing his job, he eventually started meeting the other women frequently, stating that he was single and having difficulty finding work because of the recession, which made her feel sympathetic towards him. He appealed to her sympathy and persuaded her of his financial struggles, which ultimately led her to provide him with financial assistance, behaving in a way similar to a con artist proposing marriage. I felt unwell upon discovering that he had intensified divorce discussions due to his frustration with various issues, such as the mortgage and his lack of empathy. The other woman was more accommodating and understanding, making it easier for him to control her compared to me, intending to replace me with her. The tale of giving the house was simply a strategy to speed up our divorce, an excuse he believed he could use if I declined. However, he was incorrect in believing he had influenced me. Actually, I was the one behind it all. I decided to hire a private investigator after noticing John's unusual actions and learning about his unfaithfulness. His reason for giving the house to his niece caught me off guard, but I had already made up my mind to divorce him when I found out about his affair. I wanted to chat about this issue with John before we settled into our new place. At first, I intended to talk to him about his unfaithfulness and let him know that I wanted a divorce. Despite his irrational behavior, I noticed he was unable to engage in a reasonable conversation. I chose to let him believe he was in control while I strategized my next moves behind the scenes. I confronted John with all the evidence I had gathered. "I have concrete proof of your affair. Given all this evidence, it's impossible to argue your way out of it. I will be seeking compensation from you. You were aware but chose not to speak up. What sort of person does that make you, choosing to remain quiet about your spouse's unfaithfulness? Hey there, was it you who betrayed me?" John's assertion of being a cherished husband was quite ridiculous, prompting me to scoff in response. He tripped over his words before reiterating his claim to a portion of the assets. That's when I decided to reach out to John's father as a final option. I let him know that John was requesting a division of assets. John began passionately explaining why I should include his father. But when I mentioned his father wanted to talk to him, he stopped abruptly. I handed the phone to John on speaker so he could hear his father reprimanding him. His father reprimanded him for his behavior, questioning how a man in his 30s could act so shamefully, and criticizing him for causing family breakdown while still demanding a share of assets. John has always had a challenging relationship with his father, finding it difficult to stand up to him since he was young. His father strongly dislikes dishonesty, especially when it involves hurting or deceiving others. After John proposed to divorce, I quickly reached out to John's father for advice, seeking assistance if I couldn't resolve it on my own. He encouraged me to leave my cheating husband and assured me he would talk to John. However, I had many things I wanted to say to John myself. Fearing he might run away if his father intervened, I chose not to speak. I wanted time after our divorce to coordinate with John's father and make sure John didn't find out about the house sale. Additionally, I wanted to clarify John's relationship with his niece and decided to call John's sister while John's father was present. I directly inquired whether her daughter had ever received expensive gifts or large sums of money from John, and she answered in the negative. John's sister noted that whenever John was invited to birthday parties, he always showed up without bringing any gifts, just inexpensive cars. My niece was completely unaware of the supposed marriage or the house gift, and she found it ridiculous and unwelcome. John's father and John's sister were also unaware of John's supposed affection for his niece. Where did all the money John said he spent on his niece disappear? John's sister proceeded to share important details about John's history. At the age of 20, he was detained during a police raid at an illegal casino. Confronted by his father's disapproval, John begged his mother to keep it between them, confessing to trading valuable items for money. Despite his pledge to stop, his addiction appeared to be pathological. John's father noticed some missing items from their storage and decided to address John's gambling habits while expressing concern for his niece. "Are you using your niece as a cover for your gambling? Despite being unemployed, you still engage in gambling." He instructed John to return home for a serious re-education, emphasizing that the asset division is not intended for funding bets. John reluctantly agreed to his father's terms, giving up any rights to assets and agreeing to provide compensation. Thanks to John's father's help, a lawyer he connected me with verified that John had given up his rights to any shared property, enabling me to obtain all communal assets. Moreover, Thanks to John's father's thoughtfulness, I was given a lump sum inconvenience fee from John, which was well above the standard rate. Initially, I felt anger towards John's affair partner. However, as the investigation into John's behavior extended to her, my feelings shifted. She thought John was not in a relationship and facing financial difficulties, so she offered him financial assistance despite her own money troubles. I realized she was also being manipulated by John. Even though she was tricked, she showed regret for the possible impact on my family and tearfully said sorry. She kindly offered a small sum of money as compensation, which I declined, grateful for her sentiment. I let her know that, as another victim of John's deceit, she might be eligible for some compensation, clarifying that when someone promises marriage while also making financial demands, it could be considered fraudulent. She promptly acted on this advice. During the confrontation at John's parents' house, when she accused him of using marriage as bait, John's father became furious. He recommended that she file a police report and insisted that John surrender himself right away, which created quite a stir. John humbly asked for forgiveness from his affair partner and his father, promising to return all the money he had swindled to prevent police intervention. His limited savings were entirely used up in repaying his affair partner and handling the damages, leaving him with no money. After retiring, John's father had ample time to keep a close eye on John, enforcing strict supervision that made a prison seem lenient. John's efforts to evade the surveillance were brief. He returned to his father's doorstep within 2 days due to hunger. John's father was upset by John's indecisiveness about staying or leaving, leading him to disown John and express his disappointment. Now that the house is sold and I have the proceeds, I'm looking forward to investing in some personal rejuvenation. I secured a top-floor apartment in a building I've always dreamed of living in. I look forward to savoring the view, indulging in delicious food, and cherishing the time away from John, recognizing the years spent together.
Hannah, I got your family together today. As your husband, please don't mess up the cooking. I'm expecting great hospitality. Roy, thanks, but I just had twins and came back from the hospital. It would have been nice if you considered that. What? Talking back to me, it doesn't matter that you just had babies. Having kids is what a wife should do. Don't use giving birth as an excuse. Just cook quietly. 1 week after leaving the hospital with the twins, Roy invited 15 family members to his parents' house to celebrate. I should be happy, but it seems he wants to take advantage of me after giving birth. I was really tired of my husband's behavior. I wanted to throw my phone at him, but I didn't want to ruin everything. So I calmly said, I'll start preparing everything now, but I'll need your parents' help. Getting help from my parents? Not possible. They're working in another country. Yes, as my husband mentioned, his parents couldn't come to today's family event because they're abroad. He seemed to think less of me, but he didn't know everything. I was already planning my revenge. After a quick chuckle, I went outside and returned to my in-laws' house in 5 minutes. Roy was surprised and asked, Hannah, who are these people? I don't know them. Why are you bringing strangers here? It was no wonder he was shocked. These two weren't family, but they were related to him. Let me introduce Ben and Claire. They're helping with today's preparations. You must be Roy. We've been looking forward to meeting you. We know a lot about you. Looking forward to meeting me. But both Ben and Claire seemed serious, despite being polite. They gave my husband icy stares. Confused, Roy whispered to me, Come here for a moment, Hannah. He took me to a quiet place, looking confused. He demanded, What are you doing? It's crazy to invite strangers without asking me. How will you explain this to everyone? There's no time. Get rid of them and start cooking now. Like always, he tried to scare me with his tough talk. But today, I wasn't going to let him win. I stared back at him, sure of myself. No need to worry. Everything's set. Actually, I'm planning to confront you with your mistress's parents here. What? My mistress's parents? Them? Roy, you said they were strangers, outsiders, but that's because you didn't know. I do. I kept calm, just telling the truth. Roy was shocked and then got angry. What you mean by my mistress's parents? I haven't cheated, and why are you acting like this? Are you disrespecting me? He got louder and raised his fist. It was so loud that the family might hear. It was clear he wasn't calm. What's happening, Roy? I heard shouting. Is everything okay? Oh, it's nothing, just a little argument with the wife. She's stressed because of the babies, he said, forcing a smile and hinting for me to leave. What a weak man. I followed his orders for so long, but not anymore. I went back to the living room where everyone was. After a big breath, I started my comeback. Here we go. Roy, you'll regret this. Everyone, thanks for coming today. I have something to say. I'm divorcing Roy. The happy mood disappeared in a flash. What? People were confused in my in-laws' house. But I kept smiling. You've all been fooled by Roy. He's not the good guy you think. He's a coward who bullies his wife secretly. He looks good outside, so you didn't notice. I found out just a year ago. People whispered, but Roy's uncle stood up. What's happening, Hannah? Divorcing right after having babies? And it's hard to believe Roy would trick us. He even said he was cooking for you today. I'm sorry for surprising you, but I'm just telling the truth. When I got pregnant, Roy changed. He made me work hard even though I was pregnant. Even today, he wanted me to cook. He's always lying. I looked at Roy. He looked blank. It seemed like he was trying to hide his true self. But I knew what he was thinking. Don't say too much. You know what will happen later, his face seemed to say, even though he looked angry but blank. But I kept talking. Roy kept telling me that it's normal for a wife to get pregnant and have babies. I work and provide for you, he'd say. He used these words to treat me badly. He never showed this side of him before we got married. His parents and our relatives looked surprised, but they knew I wasn't joking. So confusion spread. Then Roy stepped forward. He took a deep breath and forced a smile. It seems there's a misunderstanding. I'm not perfect. Maybe I've been too harsh to my wife. But I've taken care of her a lot. Unfortunately, she only remembers the bad things, and what she's saying isn't true. Maybe she's not thinking clearly after having the babies. I wish I could have supported her better as a husband. As Roy gave a sad smile, the relatives felt sorry for him. He's so good at looking good, I thought, but not anymore. You're really good at winning people over. No wonder you're important at your dad's company, someone said. Hannah, I know you're upset, but it's not right to confuse everyone like this. Let's talk calmly later. Roy held my hand gently, trying to stop me, but I looked at a corner, signaling what to do next. The couple stood up. No need for that. Look at these photos, they said. What? You're still here. And what are those photos? They showed the relatives some pictures. The relatives were surprised to see these strangers but still looked at the photos. Suddenly, they gasped in horror. Hey Roy, what's going on? Explain this so I understand. Let me see those photos, I said, taking the photos from his uncle. Roy was silent, looking shocked. The photos showed his cheating, something he never wanted anyone to know. These photos prove Roy's been cheating on me. I knew about his affairs before I went to the hospital and gathered evidence. But I couldn't investigate much while pregnant, so I asked his mistress's parents for help. I'm Ben, and this is my wife, Claire. We're sorry to disrupt the gathering, but we had to clear our daughter's name. Hannah, our daughter Rachel, worked with Roy. She got the job after a lot of effort and was excited to go to work every day. But Roy hurt her deeply, Ben said, his voice filled with emotion. Claire choked up and Ben put his hand on her shoulder, glaring at my husband. Rachel told us she met a great guy. She was born when my wife was 40, so you can imagine how happy we were. But to Roy, Rachel was just a fling. He lied about being single and fooled her even though she was much younger. When Rachel found out he was married, she got really depressed. We'll never forgive Roy. A silence filled the room. The relatives looked at the photos again and then turned to my husband. Their trust in him seemed to vanish. Hold on, are you all believing these old folks? Photos can be faked. They might just want money. We were surprised they're here too, but would they really lie at a family gathering? I can't believe this, my husband said. But if you're innocent, stay calm. And calling them old? That's not nice, I said, trying to calm him down. It was clear he was losing control, showing his true colors. Our plan was working, and his panic showed it. Suddenly, someone slapped my husband. Everyone gasped, especially my husband, who looked shocked. Hey Roy, long time no see. Hi, everyone. It's been a while, Mom, Dad. What are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to be overseas? There was something important, so we rushed back, my father-in-law said. Well, you came back just in time. Hannah's saying weird stuff. She's making everyone think I'm the bad guy. I didn't do anything wrong. She must be losing it, my husband said. But the in-laws just looked at him, not saying a word. You know, they talk about postpartum depression. Maybe you should go to the hospital, get checked out by specialists, and rest. Then you'll listen to me like before, my husband said, trying to convince them. He thought their silence meant they agreed. Looks like mom and dad get it. That's good. Oh, I'm thirsty. Hannah, water, he said. His mom quietly gave him a water bottle. He looked surprised but drank it anyway. Then my father-in-law dropped a bomb. Roy, you're fired from the company, he said. My husband spit out his water, shocked. A relative nearby frowned as he wiped his clothes. What, Dad? Why are you joking about this? Decide if it's a joke after looking at this. Is this a call on speaker? I'm the one who called. I had your parents listen from the start, everything on speaker. Why? Because I needed their help. As soon as I realized who you really are, I knew I had to tell them. Plus, I've recorded all the times you've treated me badly during my pregnancy. I let them hear it all. And today's conversation is recorded too. I played the recordings. The phone played our conversation. Roy, today, I've gathered our family for you as my wife. Don't embarrass me with your cooking. I'm expecting top-notch hospitality. Thank you, Roy, but you know I just gave birth to twins and was discharged from the hospital. A little consideration would have been nice. What? Talking back, it doesn't matter that you just gave birth. Besides, having children is a basic duty of a wife. Don't use postpartum as an excuse. Just cook quietly. When my husband insulted me, I really wanted to throw my phone at him. But I stopped myself because it would ruin everything. The reason I endured his insults was because I was recording them. I made sure the recording was on when I called my parents from my in-laws' house. You were recording, Hannah. Why were you sneaking around? Roy asked. I don't want to hear about sneaking around from someone who bullies his wife and cheats. And if I didn't do this, Roy would try to deny everything. I replied. Roy, we know everything. We came back secretly today. We listened to your statements on speakerphone and confirmed your true nature. My parents said. We didn't doubt you, Hannah, but as parents, we wanted to believe in Roy. And this is what happened. Now, it's your turn to explain. Why did you cheat, Hannah, when Roy was supporting you so well? As my father-in-law spoke, my husband seemed to lose his confidence. Working at his father-in-law's company, he saw him as an authority figure. He must have realized his father-in-law wouldn't accept any excuses. He started to speak hesitantly. I only got married to make you happy. Honestly, I never really wanted to get married. But I knew you were worried about my future. I thought marrying someone like Hannah would ease your concerns, he confessed. The in-laws and other relatives frowned and looked at him coldly. Feeling the tension, he quickly pleaded, Please don't fire me. I'm an important asset to the company, right? If I'm fired, it'll cause chaos. I'll change, I promise. Please reconsider. As soon as he finished begging, there was a loud thud in the room. His father had slammed his fist down on the nearby table. You scoundrel. After getting Hannah pregnant, you dared to play with the emotions of an innocent girl, pretending to be single. How dare you? Your presence only brings chaos to the company. I can't trust you to run it. I'm deeply disappointed in you. You act selfishly without caring about others' feelings. That's not how I raised you. Do you understand? My father-in-law's voice was filled with anger and disappointment. And you married just for appearances? How disgraceful. Don't think you can easily regain our trust. I'm cutting ties with you. Don't show your face here again. What? But I've worked so hard. Are you serious? My husband looked more hopeless than I'd ever seen him. I knew he put a lot of effort into the company. It was understandable for him to be shocked that it all amounted to nothing. But it was his own fault. He tried to play the victim, but he was the one who caused all of this. As he hung his head, I gave him a cold look and he immediately knelt before me. Hannah, please talk to your parents too. If I lose my job, it'll be hard for both of us, right? I'll really change. Please help me, Hannah. We're still married. How convenient for you to play the husband card now. As I've already told everyone, I'm divorcing you. No matter how much you apologize, I can't forgive you. And they feel the same way, I said, looking at my parents. They nodded in agreement. He bit his lip and turned to them. I'm really sorry for hurting your daughter. I'll apologize as many times as it takes. He kept apologizing, but they didn't agree. No matter what he said, we wouldn't forgive him right now. He was still hiding something terrible while saying sorry. He was still trying to trick us. It's too bad, Roy. You're still pretending. If you'd been honest, things might have been different. But like I've said, we know everything now. There's no going back, I said, smirking. He looked at me, stunned. Pretending. How can you say I'm not sincere? On what basis? He asked, confused. You embezzled company funds, didn't you? And then you used that money to hire thugs to threaten Rachel to keep her quiet about your true self. You wanted to silence her, right? I accused. You're crazy. I would never do something like that without proof. Making such wild accusations without evidence, that's absurd, he protested. Your parents have been investigating and have proof. That's why they're here. I've also talked to Rachel herself. I even have the voice recorder she had. Should I play it now? It clearly records you threatening her, I said. He paled and nervously glanced at his parents-in-law. Their stares were icy. Roy, stop fighting a losing battle. The truth will come out soon. This alone is enough for you to be fired, they said. Cheating is one thing, but embezzlement and blackmail change everything. I didn't know the extent of it all. Roy, you always underestimated me. You thought I was useless. But with everyone's help, we've come this far. And I'll protect our baby. I won't let you manipulate me anymore, I declared. I made my final statement. Listen carefully. I'm divorcing you. No amount of apology will change that. You'll also be paying child support. We'll seek damages from Roy too. Rachel's lost time can't be undone, so at least be sincere in compensating her. Wait. I don't have that kind of money. Can someone please help me? Roy pleaded. He looked around, but received only cold stares. Slowly, one by one, the relatives began to leave, ignoring him completely. In just one day, he lost everything. Soon after, my divorce from Roy was finalized. I managed to secure almost the amount I hoped for in child support, which was a relief. They filed a lawsuit against Roy, as promised, and the company conducted its investigation into the embezzlement. Roy found himself drowning in debt, seeking help from me, his parents-in-law, and other relatives. But no one offered assistance. With the news of his embezzlement spreading, no company would hire him. Eventually, he resorted to borrowing from payday lenders, struggling day by day to pay off his debts. My in-laws apologized to me once more, assuring me of their protection from Roy's harm. They promised to keep an eye on him and always support me. I'm incredibly grateful to them. Right now, the thought of marriage doesn't appeal to me, but if I ever reconsider, I'd want a partnership like theirs. That's how I feel. A few years later, the twins have grown up and started kindergarten, which has made a big difference in our lives. They even help with household chores now and support me in every way they can. I've completely cut ties with my ex-husband, but I still keep in touch with his parents. They introduced me to a company owned by a friend of theirs, the president of which is a single mother who raised her son alone. She's created a workplace that's supportive of single mothers. They've been understanding of my situation, offering flexible work arrangements. Rachel also works there. She's successfully reintegrated into society and is now a beloved figure in the office with her radiant smile. It's no surprise her parents stood by her. Seeing their dedication to their daughter, I have a lot to learn from them as a parent. Rachel is eager to repay her parents, and I'm also working hard every day to repay my in-laws' kindness. Though there are still challenges ahead, seeing my children's smiles instantly comforts me. I cherish every moment spent with them and am grateful to have them in my life amidst all the difficulties. Sometimes I think back to something my ex-husband used to say, that having children is just a wife's duty. But as I watch my children grow, I realize how extraordinary it all is. Pregnancy and childbirth are sacred and bring immense joy. While this experience has left deep scars, it has also taught me something valuable. For the sake of my children and myself, I want to keep moving forward and live life to the fullest.
Ha! You're still not married at your age? Sad for an older lady like you. Wow, still not married at your age? That's sad for someone like you. I met my ex-husband at a fancy Chinese restaurant. Even though he kept making mean jokes, we talked. Then my sister, who ran away to marry someone else, showed up. When my ex said he was going to marry her soon, I laughed at him. Didn't I mention? Feeling really good. My ex was surprised when I told him something surprising. I'm Michelle Smith. I'm 39 and married to Mike, who works in transportation. We met at work where I used to work in an office. I liked Mike's happy personality, and I asked him out first. I liked how easygoing and strong he seemed. It was love at first sight. When I told him how I felt, he felt the same, and we got married in 6 months. He seemed nice while we were dating, but after we got married, he changed. He started saying mean things and treating me badly. I didn't expect married life to be so hard. Every day was sad, and I started to be afraid. Mike drives trucks, but he does local deliveries. I wish he was a long-distance driver so he would be away more, giving me some space. I'm really happy that Michelle married into our family. Mike hardly ever brought girlfriends home, so I was worried he'd never get married. This happened at a big family gathering during Thanksgiving at my in-laws' house. They are really nice people who care about me a lot. When we got married, they were so excited, like they had gained a daughter. I got along well with my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law was also very nice to me. One of the few good things about my tough married life was going out to eat with my in-laws. But then, in front of them, Mike started making fun of me. It happened during a family reunion. Must be nice, huh? Having a beauty like Michelle. Look at my wife. See that flabby belly of hers? A guy in the family started teasing his wife, and everyone laughed. Then my husband started making fun of me. What are you talking about, Uncle? Michelle looks so childish, hardly like a grown-up woman. Your wife looks way more graceful and grown-up. I was so surprised and hurt by what he said. The guy said, "Come on, stop it." But everyone thought it was funny. The only ones who looked worried were my in-laws. "Michelle, go help my wife in the kitchen." My father-in-law saw I was upset and told me to go there to escape. I was grateful and went to the kitchen with my mother-in-law. I couldn't stop crying because of what happened. But my mother-in-law comforted me like she was my own mom. And my father-in-law told everyone off and made them apologize to me. They all said sorry, except for my husband, who was too drunk to care. Why should a husband have to say sorry to his wife? That's why Dad always gets made fun of by Mom. Can't you have some self-respect? And because of that, my husband and his dad started arguing. The family gathering ended early that day, and after that, my husband and his dad didn't get along anymore. I didn't go to my husband's family home much after that. Life after that was really hard. I lost the only thing that made me happy and started feeling weaker and more lost every day. Even simple tasks felt really hard, and whenever my husband remembered that day, he'd yell at me. "You must have said something stupid to them. Because of you, I was embarrassed in front of everyone." What are you going to do about it? I was scared of his anger, so I was always on edge. We lived on the 10th floor of an apartment building, and sometimes I thought about jumping to escape my sadness. When you're really tired mentally, it's hard to make good decisions, and that's how I felt. It was then, during one of these sad moments, that my sister came to visit. "You haven't talked to me lately, Michelle. You look really tired." My older sister, Catherine, who's 3 years older, used to work nights in her old job. She was really popular, probably because she looked younger than her age. It was unusual for her to visit without telling me first. "Did something happen with your husband?" My sister and I were really close when we were kids. When I got married, nobody was happier than her. She cried tears of joy and celebrated with me a lot. "I just want everything to go away. Boo-goo, what's wrong?" When Catherine saw how upset I was, tears started coming to my eyes as I told her about the tough situation with my husband. Every day, it felt like he was hurting me emotionally. It felt like being trapped in a prison, with lots of pain and sadness. Sometimes I thought about ending everything because it was all too much. Kath, when she heard all this, got really mad and said she was going to go yell at my husband right then and there, but I got even more scared just thinking about what might happen to me if she did. With tears on my face, I begged her not to talk to him. When she saw how scared I was, Catherine calmed down and started thinking of a plan. After a while, she seemed to get an idea. She looked really excited and whispered her plan to me. When I heard it, I was really surprised and asked if she was serious. "Do you really think that'll work?" "Who do you think I am?" Catherine said confidently. I trusted Catherine to make it work. But I was really worried about what might happen if her plan was found out. "Don't you want to get away from this and be free?" seeing that I couldn't decide. Even then, Mike said some really unbelievable things to me. You just want money, right? Do you want the house? I'll give you whatever you want, just let's end this. Mike made it clear in front of everyone that he didn't love me anymore. He seemed really eager to end our marriage, even if it meant paying a lot of money. The lawyer, feeling awkward, showed me how much money people usually get in these cases. You don't really care about me, do you? I can tell where your heart is. You're thinking about someone else and who you want to be with. I felt defeated and agreed to the divorce terms. Okay, but I want half of our stuff. He probably thinks he can just earn it back. Mike was happy and clueless about how things were going. But secretly, I smiled mysteriously, knowing the divorce was happening without him realizing. But even though I accepted it, Mike's parents were really against it. When we told them, they yelled at Mike and defended me. What are you thinking? Michelle has been so good to us, and you're talking about divorcing her and being with someone else. You can't be serious. His mom, Tay, tried to talk sense into Mike, while his dad was really mad and scolded him. But Mike didn't seem to care about what they said. It doesn't matter if you're okay with it or not. She already agreed. You pushed her into this with your lawyers. They really didn't want us to divorce. They've always treated me like their own child, and the thought of us splitting up was really painful for them. I could feel how much they wanted us to stay together, and I felt bad for letting them down. I love them too. I would have loved to stay as their daughter if things hadn't turned out like this with Mike. I was filled with regret and couldn't stop crying. People like you are so annoying. I'm done with her. I'm going to marry someone I really care about and be happy. Stop bothering me. Mike got really mad at his parents and started yelling back at them. They couldn't accept his decision, so they disowned him right there. Mike left his parents' house, apparently running away with his new girlfriend, and our divorce was finalized. 6 months later, I was having dinner at a fancy Chinese restaurant with my parents. Isn't that Michelle? The person who called out to me was Mike. I had gone outside to make a call and ran into him in the hallway. Long time no see. Didn't think you were still here, he said in a rude way. I must have looked disgusted. What's with that look? If you have something to say, say it. He wasn't shouting because we were in public, but he still looked down at me with cold eyes. I tried to hold back my anger and turned away, acting all tough when you can't even stand up for yourself. Did you find a new boyfriend after we split? Mike made fun of me, sneering. I only saw this side of him after we got married, and I wish I had seen it sooner. It's none of your business anymore. Without even checking if I was dating someone, Mike kept teasing me with his sly grin. Still single? Pretty sad for an old lady. Mike looked at me like he had won at life even more after we split. I was about to say something when, oh, Michelle, Mike didn't expect to see you here. My sister Catherine walked in, talking to both of us. Catherine, good timing. I was just going to tell Michelle something. Mike looked really pleased with himself as he put his arm around Catherine. I just stood there, not letting his actions bother me, watching calmly. I wanted to tell her first that we're getting married, he said proudly, pulling Catherine even closer. I'd always thought he liked Catherine more than me, and now seeing them together with no feelings, Mike still didn't understand what was happening. He grinned smugly at me. Sorry, I guess. I mean, I'll be living happily with her. But hey, you're not bad looking. Maybe if you try harder. I'm sorry, Mike. I can't marry you, Catherine said gently, moving away from him. His face showed surprise, not understanding what she meant. I never liked you. Wait, what? What do you mean? Didn't she tell you? I couldn't help myself, teasing him as he looked confused. What do you mean, didn't tell me everything? Mike was caught off guard by Catherine and me planning to make sure we got divorced. As I walked over to my sister, we both smiled. Even then, Mike couldn't understand what was happening. His words were all mixed up. Was this all a joke? Thanks to Catherine, I got a lot of money from you in the divorce. I'm really thankful for that. Refusing his first offer for a divorce was part of our plan to get as much of his stuff as we could. It was all Catherine's idea. I wanted to get a divorce but didn't want Mike to get suspicious. So I went along with it. No way, Catherine wouldn't say that. Why not? Mike couldn't believe what I was saying. He kept talking, struggling to understand. I pretended to be confused and asked, "Why would Catherine say that?" "She said she's going to marry me." "Well, if you took my joke so seriously, I was just doing my job entertaining you," Catherine said, pretending to be worried. She acted all innocent, touching her cheek and sighing. "I only pretended to like you. I'm sorry if you got the wrong idea. So you were lying this whole time? For the past 6 months, you acted like you liked me." Mike tried to act tough, but it was kind of funny. Catherine laughed mockingly, pretending to be angry. Mike got really mad and started shouting, even though we were in a store. All those things about wanting to be with me and asking me to divorce Michelle were all lies. Who would want to be with you, an emotionally abusive husband? What did you say? My sister's words made Mike really angry. He started breathing heavily, getting ready to fight. I watched them carefully and quietly got my phone. Pretending to be married to Mike for 6 months was hard, but luckily, he's not very smart. I couldn't stay married to him. Actually, my sister was already married when I was with Mike. She has a husband who works as a bodyguard. To trick Mike, my sister said she was going to get a divorce too. Mike felt good because someone was chasing after him, and he thought he was better than everyone else. He fell right into my sister's trap. So, about waiting to get that divorce, that was obviously a lie. As you can see, my marriage is going well. Then, a man came up with a smile. "Nice to meet you. Looks like my wife has been causing some trouble. You must be joking. This is my husband. I invited him here today to meet you," my sister said, happily linking arms with her husband. My ex-husband looked shocked, angry, and sad all at once. It's sad, isn't it? Wasting 6 months only to be kicked out of your own home. It's pitiful. My ex tried to grab me, but my brother-in-law stopped him easily. "You know nothing about what I went through this past year trying to make this marriage work. Do you understand? I don't want to. You hurt people and act like you're better than everyone else. Do you know how much you hurt me?" I was angry and crying as I finally let out all my frustrations. "The way you treated me in front of our family, your attitude towards my family, everything about our marriage, I'll never forgive you. You're going to pay for it." Then I called out, "Come out, please." My ex's parents, my parents, and even his relatives came out. "Now everyone can see how awful you are." I played a recording I got from my sister. It was my ex talking to her in a mean way. "Are you really going to leave Michelle?" "Of course. I don't need someone who only does chores. I want someone mature and attractive like you." Everyone was disgusted by what he said. He tried to make a scene and stop the recording, but my brother-in-law stopped him. He held him back easily, making sure he couldn't do anything. She's so obedient. Just a little threat and she'll do whatever I say. She's more like a servant, someone I can get rid of any time. I don't care about her. His in-laws were angry after hearing how he treated me. Everyone there criticized him. "You're a disgrace. How could you say those things about your wife? You're pathetic. I'm ashamed to call you family." Everyone looked at him with disgust. I spoke coldly. "Nobody is on your side anymore. Stay away from her family. I never want to see you again." After publicly scolding him, I stopped the recording and asked my brother-in-law to kick him out. He tried to fight back, but it didn't work. He was thrown out forcefully. Then the store was closed, but my husband caused a scene outside, demanding to be let back in. Eventually, the police were called, and he was taken away. My sister and I high-fived each other, happy that we had gotten revenge on my husband. We celebrated by ordering food at the restaurant, and everyone sympathized with what I had been through. It was a good idea to reserve the whole place. Everyone could relax and enjoy themselves. My sister Catherine said. I thanked her for helping me and enjoyed a meal with her for the first time in a while. That's how I got back at my ex-husband. After that, it seemed like he was bothering Catherine, and he got in trouble with the police again. My brother-in-law, Mike, also gave him a taste of his own medicine. After that, My ex was too scared to show his face around my brother-in-law. 13 years have passed since then, and now I work with Catherine at her store. I still keep in touch with my ex-in-laws and sometimes have dinner with them. I'm grateful to Catherine for helping me. I'll repay her someday. With that in mind, today I'm going to work hard with Catherine.